time is speeding up, chaos is shifting into a new level, and we feel the pull to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Timeless spiritual wisdom offers the point of stability to navigate these times and to open our greatest potential. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the fun and knowledge of visionary best-selling authors Sri and Kira as they explore these mysteries and invite your higher love to come forward. And now, here are Sri and Kira.
Namaste.
Namaste, everybody. Welcome to Higher Love. And you know, Sri and I are sitting here really feeling the gift of the topic today. Today's topic is all about who's really in control. You know, Sri joked around with me and said, I think the title of this show should have been, Let Me See Your Manager, because it's really about that.
Well, who's managing you?
Who's in control?
I mean, where do you go to make the big decisions? How do you know what to believe and who to trust? I mean, really, who's managing? Who's in charge?
Well, you know, that is such a potently powerful question, because the reality is when we often delude ourselves into thinking we're in control of our own lives, and then suddenly there's the control freak issues and all the other things. But as we relax, as we expand, as we navigate this planet, one of the things that becomes obvious is, unless we are truly the master of our journey, there are plenty out there that would love to take charge for us.
Well, you know, this isn't the right time for this, but I got to say it while I remember.
Because it's right there.
There was gosh, I don't remember the guy's name. Anyway, this is his. I'm giving him a reference here on this quote, and it goes like this.
Let's hear it.
Due to circumstances beyond my control, I am master of my ship and guardian of my soul.
What a great quote. And you know, that's so true, because the reality is we're raised from the moment we're born, we defer to a higher authority.
Well, consider the grooming. That as a little tyke, as a little girl, a little boy, you were taught to mind your parents, to respect authority, and you were basically given the message that your opinion didn't count.
Right.
That you just weren't grown up.
Or if the message was your opinion did count, there was still a deference, meaning that even if you offered something, there was an authority who would tell you whether or not that was right or wrong.
There was a sense of being humored. It was
Yes.
a little bit like when we first decided Santa Claus wasn't real, is we kind of pretended, but we knew something wasn't quite right. And it's the same with the honey, you can decide, you get to choose. There is an authority that grants us the right to choose.
Indeed. And you know, Sri, that's such a powerful comment. You know, the authority that grants us the right to choose is the same authority that is deep within us. It is that wisdom seed of our divine connection. And all cosmic beings of divine light are being called to remember. And what's fascinating here, Sri, is that as we have this great call to remember, there's also the great call that's going to help you remember, known as the polar opposite.
Well, that's right. How do we learn? How do we remember? Most often it's through contrast. You know, we need to touch the flame to know it's hot. We need to skin our knee to learn about balancing on the bicycle. And there are so many examples in life when we engage life. We learn through contrast, we learn through having gone too far. We don't learn a lot by not going far enough.
Well, you know, that's a great comment, Sri. And one of the things that's sitting here, as you're sharing that, what's really coming up for me is, what are the basics of life, right? The basics of life, we would say, are water, air, food, and shelter, right?
Well, at the most fundamental level,
right, that's
it's
where I'm
the
going.
physical needs.
Okay, so if the most fundamental level is water, air, food, and shelter, if someone was seeking to control you, to kind of shut down at the first chakra, the traditional first chakra level, then those would be the areas you would go after. And you know, on last week's show, if you did not listen to last week's show, An Army of One, go catch up, go listen, because this is the third in a series. Listen to the one in front of that as well. And what we're really saying here is, you've got to start looking at that. What's happening to the air? What's happening to the water? What's happening to our food? A lot to talk about that in the second half of the show. And what's happening to shelter? There are huge, I want to use the word, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, guys. I'm going to call this, there are huge calls to consciousness in all of these areas, because these areas are showing us ways that we have to start really asking the question, who's in control?
Well, I love how polite my wife is.
I'm trying to be
A
anyway.
huge call to consciousness.
Well-
What she's saying is there are manipulative forces that are interfering with your sovereignty.
It's all perspective, isn't it?
So let's jump back to some theory for a second.
Okay.
Now, Abraham Maslow, who's a wonderful psychologist who is really credited with so much definition of human behavior and human needs, he talked about the hierarchy of needs.
Right.
So we have these physical needs, the air, the food, the shelter, the water.
The water.
Okay, the physical needs. Once they're met, human nature, human consciousness rises to getting its emotional maturity, and then its spiritual maturity starts to come forward. I need to be around compatible people, etc. Then comes in art and beauty. So when the fundamentals are at rest, meaning they're satisfied, we're able to actually grow in our inner culture and our appreciation of
I have to
the
jump
divine.
in because you're so right, and here's what I'm thinking of, and I know a lot of you are parents out there, and so here's where I'm going. Fundamentals,
Yeah.
right? Then we go to the fundamentals, then we start looking at being with like-minded, then art and beauty. Think about what's happening in our school system.
Well,
Okay, so we went through, and I'm probably going to date myself, but when I was a child in school, art was mandatory, music was mandatory. I happened to go to a school where Latin was mandatory, but the reality is that we were still in somewhat of a growth phase from a societal perspective.
there was a greater sense of safety in the society.
Well, exactly, and
That was
now, and this is just a fact, because of quote-unquote budgetary concerns, and everybody can weave their own spin on it. You look at Maslow, just to quote that, this isn't woo-woo, this is science, and you look at Maslow and say, we're actually coming back down because we say art and science no longer matter. We're actually collapsing. We're all the way back down, and you even hear them say the word, we're only going to teach the basics.
Or the fundamentals.
Or
We
the
can't
fundamentals.
afford the
Correct.
the higher end.
Because
Now-
we can't
now-
afford awake people. That's really what they're saying.
So Abraham Maslow defined this stuff decades ago, and it's very true
Right.
in human nature. Now let's take a look at the chakra system.
Exactly.
And the base chakra is about safety.
Remember, that's your first chakra located at the base of the spine.
And that's the place, it's no accident it's at the base of the spine because that's your pelvis. It's your ability to walk.
It's your ability to be balanced.
So if we're fed and sheltered and such, we can move through life. So that's foundational.
Exactly. And at the lower frequencies, it's all about safety. It's about air, water, food, and shelter.
So if indeed this area or these qualities were not secure, then the person's living in a constant strategy seeking more. I got to find more stability, more security, more safety, more
Well,
food.
and here's what it breeds. It breeds jealousy. It breeds greed. It breeds manipulation.
Greed, competition, all
exactly.
that.
And so pay attention to these energies, my loves, because the reality is who's in control. And Sri, I know you and I are offering different, not different perspectives, but we're offering broader perspectives. These are all opportunities of calls to consciousness because in this moment on this planet right now, if you are not taking control of your life, I can assure you that there are forces out there that would love to continue. And Shri, it brings me right to, I've got to bring it up, medical system.
Well.
Okay, I just dropped the M-bomb, right? And again, stay with us. We have so much to share in this show.
Well, okay. So before we jump into that, I just want to make sure that we have shared this conceptual piece. Because remember, as we mature, meaning as we gain mastery, so mature doesn't mean you're getting old and crusty. It means you're gaining in your mastery.
Calling in your wisdom.
Your personal empowerment,
Absolutely.
your wisdom, the age of maturity is an age of grace and action
So
and power.
I have to say one thing here. I also would invite all of you that are women out there and all of you men to pay attention. For a woman who is maturing, I would encourage you, instead of saying that you are croning, why don't you say you are queening? And pay attention to the wisdom that comes in with that and the implication that comes with that. Just my 2 cents, you can continue.
That's a good piece. And so these qualities of maturation, of evolution, are being stunted. And what I mean by that is we're losing support in the outer world.
Yeah.
There are forces in the outer world that are discouraging independent thinking, independent leadership, community cooperation. There are forces that would simply say, don't rock the boat. Now get back on board the bus and let someone else drive.
And go to the school where we can teach you to be a fast food manager at best, where we can dumb down the system, where we can, do lots of things like that.
And so our message, what we're seeking to offer to you today is to raise your awareness, to look around. This isn't about activism and doing battle with the system. It's about recognizing the environment you're in, to recognize the environment. And through that recognition to say, thank you, this environment is helping me remember I must take action inside. I must choose to live an empowered life.
Well, exactly. Or you can just go the opposite and get consumed by conspiracy theories and manipulation energies and anger. And yet every time you allow that to happen, every time that starts driving you, we talked about this earlier, my loves, what chakra are you in? You're back down there in that primal safety energy. You are a being of divine crystalline light. You have a cosmic energy in your soul. Take that on whatever level resonates for you, and if it doesn't resonate, just throw that one out. But the reality is, you are being given this gift in this moment right now to call you to consciousness. The more that something in your life looks like the opposite, then the more you're being called. And here's the magic key. We're going to give you one magic key before we get to the second half of the show. The minute, I mean the second, the moment, that wink of an eye, that you recognize it, the illusion disappears and your freedom comes forward. But it takes commitment to staying there.
There are some other tricks we want to share with you and some other insights, so we invite you to take a deep breath and to recognize no matter where you go, there you are.
Indeed, and we look forward to that.
And so don't go away, because we want to chat about some further insights and some tips that will help you navigate basically the troubled waters of these times.
Indeed.
We'll be right back.
Namaste, beloved one. This is Kira Ra, and I am inviting you to take a journey of the soul in the land of the heart. Imagine your life free from chaos and filled with creative clarity. Imagine waking up each day in your private lakefront casita, greeted by brilliant sun, flowers, and birds. It is here that you will effortlessly resurrect your divine blueprint in pristine energy. Yes, I am inviting you to join us for a personal resurrection vacation.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We are so glad you are with us.
And today we're exploring the whole greater understanding of who's in charge, who's making choices for you. And so we want to come back to some of the particulars to make sure that you can wrap around this in a way that might support you as you live consciously. So the first particular is, what kind of environment have you placed yourself in? Because the environment you place yourself in has rules. Now, most of the rules are actually unwritten. It has standards. And these standards define what's naughty and what's nice. These standards define what's considered acceptable behavior or goals and aspirations, etc. Just as people choose a religious orientation, a faith, it comes with boundaries.
That's true.
It comes with its own steps or dogma to help you move along the path. Similarly, each political system, each economic system. What kind of schools are your children being educated in? If you're a parent, it's real important to look at that. And similarly, what kind of career? Where are you working? What are the standards being imposed upon you that are asking you to conform? These things must be looked at, because overall, if you live in North America and many parts of Europe, the cultures are in decay.
Well, now I've got to jump in because I think that's globally.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just Europe or North America. I think it's globally. However, here's some of the pieces about it. Ironically, the more developed or the more mature your country is, the more that they are taking greater steps to control you. I think that there is a very obvious air control going on, known as chemtrails. And I'm sure by now a lot of you have noticed chemtrails. One of the gifts that Shri and I love about living here is that we don't have them. And you know, we were so accustomed to them, even at our ranch in New Mexico. I used to go out and just watch them, and by the end of the day you'd have these big X's and you'd watch the little stuff seeping, and of course we had all of our own little, you know, crystalline devices and grids, and it used to be fun to watch that. But the reality was, it was all the time, it was every day, sometimes many times a day.
All throughout North America.
Right. And this is all over the world except for, and we find this very fascinating, living down here right now, we don't have it. And we were actually living here a couple months before it hit me because I was so accustomed. And I used to comment on how beautifully blue and brilliant our sky was and how clear it was and how much better we were feeling, until it finally hit me that there are no chemtrails here. And it's a fascinating thing, and you know, there's a joke down here about, well, the reason there's no chemtrails in Guatemala is because nobody cares. And the reality is that when you have your air being, let's just say, infused with energy that would seek to take your consciousness to a lower vibration, even that can be turned into a higher frequency if you allow it to be. It just means you have to pay attention to it. So we do have the air. You know, then we look at the water. How many people now know that most bottled water is actually worse than what might be coming out of your tap?
It really depends where you live.
Exactly.
But there's a naivety. If you don't think, you will swallow something that may not be as good for you.
Exactly.
You know, an example, if you look at what's happened in the United States with the label organic. Okay? Organic's not organic anymore.
I'm sorry, my loves, I don't need to be laughing, but the reality is, you know, you can take anything, redefine it, put a Word document on it.
They're legislating the meeting.
Exactly.
So let's just pause for a second. We know that this thing here, your body, was designed before the advent of chemicals and growth hormones and pesticides, okay, food additives and colorings.
Exactly.
Your body was designed to run efficiently on organic, natural foods. Period.
And before the birth of the pharmaceutical industry, right?
So I just was staying with organic for a second, because there was a shift and an awareness that started coming out of the late 60s with the health food stores and the emergence of a recognition of the difference between organically grown leafy vegetables and leafy greens that had sprays on them, or the fact that due to distribution and profit requirements, fruit is picked raw.
Right.
And they artificially spray it to make it ripen. So that's a whole conversation. That's a long conversation. The key here is to recognize it's a simple truth. You're designed to ingest naturally grown things. The government has redefined organic to include certain acceptable variations, including growth hormones and additives.
Because they're organic growth hormone and organic additives.
And similarly, as there's been a recent blip on the news, and this isn't the first time. About a year and a half ago, the FDA in full SWAT regalia stormed into a small organic grocery and shackled the owners for selling raw milk. That was Southern California. And now just a month ago in Minnesota or Wisconsin, I don't remember, sorry, they shut down a cheese factory that for 30 years had been selling wholesome raw milk cheese.
And of course we all know that the food codex has now come into full play. And if you don't know anything about the food codex, go Google it, go YouTube it, go learn a lot about what it's done and why. And the key is all of this, as with the Patriot Act and all of these other things that are limiting more and more your ability of free choice, are saying it's for your own good. Well, the higher vibration of that is, I shouldn't say the higher vibration, the higher reason of that would be, we don't trust you to make decisions for yourself. We'd like you to be a little slower, a little dumber. You know, how much ADHD is out there now?
Where did that come from?
Exactly. How many young, rampant diabetes, even in young children, rampant obesity, rampant issues that are 100% attributable to a system that is probably worried about the population, looking for ways to inhibit lifespan, and thereby offering solutions by birthing a I want it now culture.
Well,
The drive-through culture.
This is such a matrix of
It is.
manipulation.
It truly is.
And let's just take it at its simplest level without getting hung up on any form of argument around
Right.
it. Our food supply has deteriorated, period. Our distribution methods cause foods to either spoil or be picked green. There are additives and preservatives in foods that are not healthy for the human being.
Well, and how about...
And there's fluoride and aspartame and all kinds of
and then
stuff.
we're having rampant, regular outbreaks of get that meat off the shelf, this one has died, these fruits have killed people, and
Well,
it's
and
just out
the
there.
different flus.
Exactly.
And so the point of the matter is, if you lost your job today, if you're dependent on that, you would be frightened, most
Of
likely.
course, yeah,
If you lost your health for some reason, there's a fear that comes in.
absolutely.
Imagine an entire society where people are constantly being on alert that they're not safe, there may be a mass shooting, that oh my goodness, we're going to pat you down and do orifice checks at the airport. For what?
Even if you're a kid.
More people have died of accidental drowning than have ever died from terrorism
Now take that one
in the last few years.
Really, take that one in, but yet...
But there's
look
no big alarm about,
Right.
oh my goodness, let's put more fences up around the natural streams and ponds. So why is it that the public's attention is being focused toward unresolvable fear?
Well, I love that, Sri. And the other thing that I want to bring up is, the other day we had looked at this, that, what is it, the third or fourth killer in the United States is infections that someone got in the hospital.
The number one cause of death is cancer, the second one is cardiovascular disease, and the third cause of death are complications from having entered the medical system.
That's the
The
number
hospital.
3 cause of death. So the reality is, who's in control? I mean, it really goes back to, hey, let me see your manager, and the manager is you. Now, we want to make it really clear, we're not inferring that you should become a control freak, and we're not inferring that you should get hyper-vigilant. You know, we really invite you to consider the Buddha way of everything in moderation.
Unless you take a deep breath and bring yourself into the love space, that is, lift out of the fear, lift out of the emotional reactivity, and lift out of the need to dominate the environment.
You're right,
Those
right.
are those 3 chakras. Safety, emotion, and power. Is the power healthy power, or is it reactive?
Right.
And then we get to the heart space. When you can do this, even for a moment, to lift into your heart space and look around, then you can make a clear decision about anything.
And you know, when you lift into your heart space, you then are really, really able to access that universal greater cosmic wisdom. You know, every year in April, Sri and I offer quantum immersion training here in Guatemala, and I really encourage you to come take this training, especially in 2013. There is a powerful, powerful momentum on the planet, and that's why we're doing this series of shows. This power is getting so huge and so force-filled that unless you are able to open up into greater realms of your own self, and we're talking about connecting with the past, connecting with the future, connecting with the present, connecting with your truth, taking in and opening that galactic wisdom, harnessing that vision, opening up the wide-angle lens, and moving forward. Without all those key ingredients, it is getting harder and harder, and I suspect you already feel that.
So what we're suggesting to you is that the outer world, meaning the society that's in decay, the school systems that are in decay, the food supply, the medical system, all of this in North America, the outer world is in a state of decline energetically.
Yes.
Meanwhile, your soul and your journey, for those of you that have found us, you are the ones that are saying, no, I'm choosing to lift. I'm choosing a greater harmony. I'm choosing a world that has beauty and love and light in it. That's where I want to live.
There is no accident you found this show and that you found what we're sharing, because something inside of you, even if you're listening to us going, well, something deep inside of you is birthing. It is awakening.
And here's what I know for sure. When we, and this is back to Maslow, when we organize ourselves in a group, like you identify with your community or your friends or your society, your need for belonging will unconsciously sabotage your growth. And it's subconscious, because right after physical needs are the social needs.
Right.
And the need for belonging is very strong. We need to know who we belong to, who we belong with, where are my friends, because that's what nourishes us emotionally.
And that's what we're going to wrap up this series with next week, is we're going to be talking about who are my friends and what are my social needs and how does this affect my quantum experience.
And so the ability to know what's really true for you means at times you have to stand aside from the established group. And what I've learned is the only way to quickly and clearly anchor that empowerment is to unplug from the entire system, the entire network that you're associated with, temporarily. Unplug, go on retreat. Whether in the old times, the Indians would go on a vision quest.
Right, we'll go on a vision quest.
And you take time out and go into
Absolutely.
nature, because nature was not controlled by man's institutions.
Right.
And so we're suggesting to you that you perhaps consider that wisdom. Unplug from what you're doing. Join us for a week-long immersion into quantum time and space and discover a greater fabric of belongingness.
And then bring that energy back to your home, to your community, so that others will discover it through you. And if you're unable to join us live down here for a week-long immersion, at the very least, learn more about our home study program in the convenience of your own home, extremely affordable. Better yet, do both. And so the reality is that in this moment, we are asking you, who's in charge? I'd like to speak to your manager.
So beloved ones, until we have the joy of being with you again, take a deep breath in and know that all is truly well.
Thank you for joining us today for 2012 Higher Love. Remember that you can find out more about Sri and Kira by going to SriandKira.com. That's SriandKira.